The wind claws at my coat while I trudge through knee-deep snow toward the tree line where the trapline snapped. My breath freezes into silver needles in front of my face. I tighten my grip on the rifle slung across my shoulder, the metal cold enough to burn through wool. Something moved out here last night, something big enough to spring a steel jaw without leaving blood. That never happens in these woods. If primal shifter romance is your thing, hit subscribe. Back to the story. Moonlight glints off a dark shape huddled beneath the bent birch. I freeze, every instinct screaming that I should turn back. The shape shifts, revealing gray fur matted with ice. A wolf lies there, paw caught in my trap, chest rising in shallow gasps. His amber eyes find mine across the clearing, and something electric jolts through my chest. Wolves don't get caught in traps, not the ones around here. They're too smart, too fast, too careful. My feet carry me forward before my mind catches up. The wolf's hackles rise, but he doesn't growl, doesn't bare his teeth. He watches me approach with those impossible eyes, intelligence burning behind the pain. Blood has frozen into crimson lace around the steel jaws clamped on his leg. I set my rifle against a tree and pull the release lever, the metal groaning as springs relax. The trap opens with a metallic snap that echoes through the forest. The wolf doesn't run. He stays motionless while I examine the damage, his breathing shallow but steady. The leg isn't broken, though deep punctures mark where teeth of steel met flesh. I tear strips from my scarf, my fingers trembling as I bind the wounds. His fur feels like silk beneath my hands, warmer than anything has right to be in this killing cold. When my skin brushes against his, fire races up my arm and settles in my chest like coming home. "You're coming with me," I whisper, sliding my arms beneath his body. He weighs more than I expected, solid muscle and bone that makes my muscles scream as I lift. His head rests against my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. Each step toward my cabin becomes a battle against snow and wind and the growing certainty that nothing in my life will ever be simple again. The cabin door groans open on hinges that need oiling. I lay the wolf on my bed, the only place not covered with books and research papers. He occupies the entire mattress, from pointed ears to brush tail. His eyes never leave me while I stoke the fire, adding pine until flames roar and cast dancing shadows across rough-hewn walls. Steam rises from my clothes as heat penetrates layers of wool and leather. I fill a bowl with water from the kettle, testing the temperature against my wrist before setting it beside the bed. The wolf laps greedily, his pink tongue flashing in firelight. When he finishes, I unwrap my makeshift bandage to find the bleeding has stopped. The wounds look cleaner now, almost as if they've begun healing already. That's impossible for injuries this fresh, but my research has documented stranger things in these mountains. "You're going to be fine," I tell him, running my fingers through thick fur. He leans into my touch, a low sound rumbling in his chest that might be contentment. My scientific mind catalogs the anomalies, the way he doesn't fear me, the speed of his healing, the electric shock that passed between us. My heart knows better, recognizes what my brain refuses to accept. This is no ordinary wolf. He shifts, the movement fluid and wrong, fur rippling like water. Bones crack and reshape beneath my hands. I stumble backward, my hip striking the table as the impossible unfolds before my eyes. Fur recedes into skin, muzzle shortens into human features, paws stretch into fingers that clutch at my quilt. Where the wolf lay, a man now occupies my bed, naked and breathing hard. His hair falls black across his forehead, longer than any man I've seen wears it. Scars map across skin stretched over muscle that speaks of strength beyond human limits. When his eyes open, they're the same amber that watched me from the clearing, pupils still elongated against the firelight. He pushes himself up on one elbow, the movement causing muscles to shift beneath golden skin. "Your name," he says, his voice rough from disuse. The words carry an accent I can't place, something old that makes my bones vibrate. He doesn't seem concerned about his nakedness, though heat floods my face as I grab a blanket from the chair. He accepts it with a nod, wrapping it around his shoulders while never breaking eye contact. "Elara," I manage, my throat suddenly dry. My back hits the wall as I retreat, putting distance between us. Every story, every whispered legend of my childhood floods back. The old women spoke of creatures that walked as men and wolves, beings that lived in the spaces between what science could explain and what hearts knew to be true. "Elara," he repeats, testing the weight of it. My name sounds different in his mouth, like it belongs there. He swings his legs over the edge of the bed, testing the injured one with careful pressure. The wounds have closed completely, leaving only pink scars that will fade by morning. "I'm Riker," You've saved my life. The fire crackles between us, casting his face in sharp relief. He stands slowly, the blanket slipping to reveal the line of his hip, the curve where back meets thigh. My pulse hammers against my throat as he takes one step closer. The air between us thickens, charged with something that makes my skin feel too tight for my body. His scent fills the small space, pine and snow and something wild that makes my knees weak. You should sit, I say, though my voice comes out breathless. I gesture toward the chair, anything to put something solid between us. He smiles, slow and knowing, like he can hear every thought racing through my head. Instead of sitting, he moves to the window, gazing out at the moon where it hangs heavy above the mountains. 3 days, he says, his reflection ghosted against the glass. I need 3 days to heal fully. After that, I'll leave you in peace. He turns back to me, and the intensity in his gaze makes my stomach clench. Unless you want me to leave now. My mouth opens, closes, opens again. Every rational thought screams that I should demand he leave immediately, that I should grab my rifle and force him out into the night. Instead, I find myself shaking my head, the movement small but definitive. Something in my chest unclenches when he nods, relief clear in the set of his shoulders. I'll make tea, I say, turning toward the kettle because I need something to do with my hands. Behind me, I hear him moving around the cabin, examining my books, my research notes, the life I've built in isolation. His presence fills every corner of the small space, making the walls feel closer, the air thinner. When I turn back with 2 mugs, he's settled into my reading chair like he belongs there. Tell me about the traps, he says, accepting the tea with fingers that brush mine and send sparks racing up my arm. He holds the mug but doesn't drink, watching me over the rim with those impossible eyes. Who sets steel for wolves in these mountains? The question hangs between us, loaded with implications I don't want to examine. I settle onto the hearth, the stone warm beneath me, and tell him about the farmers below, about missing livestock, about fear that spreads faster than truth. His fingers tighten around the mug as I speak, knuckles going white with contained rage. They're hunting us, he says when I finish. The words fall like stones into still water. Not for protection, not for food, for sport. He sets the mug aside and stands, pacing the length of the cabin in 3 strides. Do you know what I am, Alara? I nod, though the word feels too small for what sits before me. Werewolf. Shifter. Creature of legend made flesh in my cabin. He stops pacing, standing over me where heat from the fire warms his skin. Slowly, deliberately, he extends his hand. When I take it, he pulls me to my feet until we're standing close enough that I can see flecks of gold in his amber eyes. I'm not what the stories say, he whispers, his breath warm against my cheek. I'm not a monster. I'm not your enemy. His thumb traces across my knuckles, the touch sending shivers down my spine. But I am dangerous to those who hunt my kind. Dangerous to anyone who stands between me and survival. Are you dangerous to me? The question escapes before I can stop it. His grip tightens fractionally, not painful but possessive. He leans closer until his lips brush the shell of my ear. That depends entirely on you, he says. The words carry weight beyond their meaning, a promise and a warning wrapped together. He releases my hand, stepping back toward the bed where he settles against the headboard. 3 days, then we'll both know what danger means. I retreat to my desk, pulling out my journal with hands that refuse to steady. Behind me, I hear him shifting on the mattress, the rustle of blankets as he makes himself comfortable in my space. The fire burns lower, casting dancing shadows across walls that suddenly feel like they might not be strong enough to contain what's been set in motion tonight. The scratch of my pen sounds too loud against the silence that stretches between us, and I force myself to write observations instead of letting my mind spiral into the heat that still lingers where Riker's fingers touched mine. Wolf, male, approximately 180 pounds when healthy, exhibits accelerated healing inconsistent with documented lupin physiology. I pause, watching the ink bead on the page while the fire pops behind me, and I know I'm cataloging symptoms of something no textbook has ever named. His breathing has already steadied from the shallow gasps that rattled his ribs 3 hours ago, and when I glance over my shoulder, I see his eyes reflecting firelight in a way that belongs more to starlight than to any earthly creature. Those eyes track me without blinking as I rise and cross to my medicine cabinet, and I feel the weight of his attention like hands sliding across my skin beneath my sweater. I take down the jar of powdered comfrey and the bottle of grain alcohol. mixing them with steady fingers that betray nothing of the tremor building low in my stomach. When I turn back, he shifted again, the blankets pooling at his waist to reveal the curve of his shoulder where the bullet grazed him, and the wound there has closed to a thin red line that shouldn't exist after the damage I saw. I approach the bed slowly, because sudden movements around predators trigger instincts older than speech, and I set the bowl of salve on the nightstand where he can see it. "This will prevent infection," I say, and my voice comes out softer than I intended, almost gentle, as if I'm speaking to a lover instead of a stranger who might still tear my throat out. Riker watches me with those impossible eyes, and when he speaks, his voice carries the same midnight texture I felt in his fur. "Your scent changed when you touched me." The words hit me like a physical thing, because I felt it too, the moment my palm met the fevered heat of his pelt, and something inside my chest unlatched itself from bone. I sit on the edge of the mattress, keeping the width of the bowl between us as I dip 2 fingers into the salve, and I tell myself the warmth spreading through my thighs is just proximity to the fire. When I touch the edge of the healing wound, he doesn't flinch, but I feel the ripple that passes through his muscles like electricity seeking ground. "You're changing," I whisper, because the skin beneath my fingertips is too smooth, too human, and the fur along his spine is retreating like tidewater, revealing something ancient beneath. Riker's hand closes around my wrist, not tight enough to bruise but with enough pressure to still my movement, and I realize I've been stroking the line where flesh meets fur without conscious intent. "Not changing," he says, and his thumb traces the pulse hammering beneath the thin skin of my inner wrist. "Returning." The distinction sends heat pooling low in my belly, because I understand exactly what he means, having spent years studying the moment when instinct overcomes training, and the animal beneath the skin remembers its true shape. I should pull away, should maintain the professional distance that kept me safe through a decade of fieldwork with creatures who could kill me without malice. But instead, I find myself leaning closer until the scent of pine and snow and something wilder fills my lungs. "What are you returning from?" I ask, and my voice barely disturbs the air between us as I set the bowl aside, no longer needing the pretense of medical purpose. Riker releases my wrist only to cup my face with a hand that bears the faint shimmer of transformation, and I feel the callus along his palm that speaks of weapons held long enough to become extensions of flesh. "From being lost," he says, and then his mouth finds mine with the inevitability of gravity claiming rain. The kiss tastes of cedar smoke and winter air, but underneath those surface notes lies something that makes my bones ache with recognition, as if my body has been waiting my entire life to fit itself against this particular shape. When we break apart, I'm breathing like I've run miles through deep snow, and Riker's eyes have shifted to something that holds both human intelligence and Lupin intensity in impossible balance. "You feel it too," he says, not a question but a statement of fact that requires no confirmation, and I realize I'm straddling his thighs with no memory of having moved there. My sweater has ridden up to expose the skin of my back, where his hands rest with a possession that should terrify me, but instead feels like coming home to a place I've never been. "This is impossible," I manage, though my body is already learning the rhythm of his, arching closer when he trails his mouth along the tendon of my throat. Riker's laugh vibrates against my pulse point, and I feel the edge of teeth that are definitely too sharp for human. "Impossible is just another word for undocumented," he says, and the scholar in me wants to applaud the accuracy, while the woman in me wants to feel those teeth score my skin. I slide my hands into his hair, discovering the texture of silk and strength that makes me want to bury my face there and breathe until I drown in the scent of him. 3 days, I remind him, though my voice breaks on the words as he rocks his hips against mine in a slow roll that has me seeing stars. "In 3 days, the moon will be full," he agrees, and his hands move to my hips with a pressure that leaves no doubt about his intention to claim what the universe has already decided belongs to him. "But tonight you learn what it means to be chosen by something that doesn't ask permission." The words should fright me, but instead they settle into my chest like a key turning in a lock that's waited centuries for this exact combination. And when he rolls us so I'm beneath him on the narrow bed, I understand that I've been waiting too. Outside, the wind howls around the eaves of my cabin, but inside we're creating our own storm, one that will remake the boundaries between human and beast until neither of us remembers where one ends and the other begins. His mouth claims mine with the same fierce certainty that carried him through silver jaws and winter starvation. And when his tongue slides past my teeth, I taste pine sap and wildfire, and something darker that makes my knees buckle against his hips. Riker's hands bracket my ribs like I'm something precious rather than the trapper who nearly killed him. And the low growl vibrating through his chest tells me the wolf is pacing just beneath his skin, testing the boundaries of this human shape he wears for me. I arch into him because I can't not, because every cell in my body has been waiting for this exact weight, this exact heat, this exact moment when the distance between us collapses into nothing but skin and breath and the sharp scrape of his stubble against my throat. He pulls back just far enough to study my face in the firelight, and I see the moment his golden eyes shift from hunger to something more dangerous. Recognition. Like he's seeing past my careful layers of flannel, and solitude to the part of me that howls at windows and runs barefoot through forests when the moon grows fat. Elara, he says, my name rough as winter bark on his tongue, and I realize he's been holding himself back, that every gentle touch has been deliberate restraint when what he wants is to mark me, claim me, make me his in ways that have nothing to do with human courtship and everything to do with the way wolves choose mates for life. I should be terrified. Instead, I fist my hands in his hair and drag him back down, because I've spent 10 years studying predator behavior, and I know the difference between violence and necessity, between destruction and the kind of consumption that remakes rather than ruins. When he groans into my mouth, I feel the sound travel straight to my core, and suddenly my clothes are too much, too heavy, too human for what we're becoming. I tear at his shirt and feel the scar tissue ridge across his ribs where the trap should have shattered bone. But there's only smooth skin heated like river stones in summer. Proof that what healed him wasn't medicine, but something older and far less willing to let death take what belongs to it. Riker's hands slide beneath my thermal top, and I gasp at the contrast between his fever-warm palms and the cool air hitting my spine as he strips the fabric away like he's unwrapping something sacred rather than merely desired. "You don't understand what you're doing," he mutters against my collarbone, but his hips grind against mine with delicious friction that belies his words, and I can feel exactly how much he wants this, wants me, wants the thing neither of us can name, but both of us recognize like we've known it in dreams that vanish at sunrise. I bite his shoulder just to feel him shudder, just to taste salt and skin and the electric shock of how completely he's mine in this moment when the world outside has shrunk to the space between my sheets. Then he stills above me, every muscle rigid as a hunting wolf who's caught the scent of something wrong on the wind. And I hear it too, tires crunching on the frozen dirt road that leads only to my cabin, the sound of an engine that doesn't belong to any vehicle I know. Riker's off me in one fluid motion, standing naked in the firelight with his weight balanced on the balls of his feet like he's ready to launch himself through the window. And the growl that rips from his throat isn't human anymore, isn't even pretending to be. "Get dressed," he says without looking at me, and there's something in his voice that makes my blood freeze, some note of resignation that tells me he's been waiting for this moment, dreading it, knowing it would come to tear us apart before we'd even learned how to fit together. I scramble for my clothes while headlights sweep across the front windows, casting long shadows that make my small cabin feel like a trap instead of a sanctuary. And Riker moves with predatory grace to the door, not bothering to cover himself, because he's past caring about human modesty now that his worst fear has arrived on my doorstep. Through the glass I see a black SUV with government plates, and my stomach drops as I recognize the wolf emblem on the door. Wildlife Management, the same department that's been trying to shut down my research for years, claiming my methods are too invasive, too dangerous, too likely to expose things that should stay hidden in these mountains where civilization hasn't quite managed to tame the wilderness. The knock comes hard and authoritative, 3 sharp raps that echo like gunshots in the sudden silence, and Riker's hand is on the knob before I can stop him, before I can remind him that he's supposed to be dead, that if they see him standing here whole and unmarked they'll know exactly what he is, and exactly what I've been hiding in these woods where the boundary between animal and human has always been thinner than the authorities like to pretend. But when he opens the door, I see the moment his entire posture shifts from defensive to regal. his shoulders squaring as he faces the two agents in their crisp uniforms. And I understand with sick clarity that this isn't just about a wolf who survived a trap. This is about a prince who's been hiding among humans, pretending to be something he's not while his kingdom waited for his return. "Your Highness," the taller agent says, and the words hit me like a physical blow because I've been studying wolf behavior for a decade. But I never once considered that the packs I've been tracking might have hierarchies that mirror human royalty. Never imagined that the wounded animal I brought into my home might be something far more dangerous than a predator simply trying to survive. Riker doesn't flinch at the title, doesn't deny it. Just stands there in my doorway wearing nothing but moonlight and the kind of authority that makes trained federal agents lower their gaze like submissive wolves recognizing their alpha. "We've come to escort you home," the second agent continues, and I can hear the unspoken threat beneath his polite tone, can feel the weight of laws older than human government pressing against my walls like a physical force demanding compliance, demanding surrender, demanding that I give up what isn't mine to keep. Riker turns to look at me then, really looks at me, and I see everything we've built in these few days collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. Because he never belonged here, never belonged to me, was only ever passing through on his way back to a life I can't follow him into. A world where I'm nothing but the human who saved him, the woman who touched him, the trapper who nearly killed what her kind isn't even supposed to know exists. "I'm not going anywhere," he says quietly, but we both know it's a lie even before the agents shift their weight, before their hands move to the weapons holstered at their hips, before the entire weight of a kingdom he's been running from settles on his shoulders like a mantle he never wanted but can't refuse. I want to tell him to fight, to run, to shift into the wolf I know lives beneath his skin and disappear into these forests where we tracked each other like prey, until we realized we were actually hunting for home. But I can see the moment he accepts what I've been too blind to see, that he was never mine to keep, that some cages are built from responsibility rather than steel, that some bonds are too dangerous to allow when they threaten the careful balance between the world of teeth and fur and the world of laws and consequences. The wind claws at my coat while I trudge through knee-deep snow toward the tree line where the trapline snapped. My breath freezes into silver needles in front of my face. I tighten my grip on the rifle slung across my shoulder, the metal cold enough to burn through wool. Something moved out here last night, something big enough to spring a steel jaw without leaving blood. That never happens in these woods. Moonlight glints off a dark shape huddled beneath the bent birch. I freeze, every instinct screaming that I should turn back. The shape shifts, revealing gray fur matted with ice. A wolf lies there, paw caught in my trap, chest rising in shallow gasps. But this is wrong, completely wrong, because the trap is closed on nothing but air and snow. The wolf's paw rests inches away, whole and unbloodied. The creature's eyes meet mine, and they're not the gold of a normal wolf but the storm gray I know belongs to Riker. "You're tracking me now?" His voice carries through the clearing though his wolf form hasn't moved. The words vibrate inside my chest like a second heartbeat. I lower the rifle because pointing it at him feels like aiming at my own soul. "I thought you were gone." The wolf's lips pull back in what might be a smile or a snarl. "I am gone, Alara. That's the entire point of leaving." Snow crunches beneath my boots as I step closer, and the wolf's hackles rise in warning. "Then why are you here in my territory?" "Your territory?" The wolf lunges to its feet, and the transformation happens between one breath and the next, fur receding into skin, bones reshaping, muscles rippling beneath human flesh that shouldn't exist in this cold. Riker stands before me naked and furious, steam rising from his skin like he's been forged from the mountain's heart. "This was never your territory. This was always mine by birthright, by blood, by the crown I never wanted but can't escape." My throat closes because he's beautiful and terrible, and everything I tried to forget during the 3 weeks since he disappeared. "You left without saying goodbye. You think goodbye would have been enough?" His voice drops to a growl that makes my knees weak. "You think I could have looked at you and walked away if I'd seen your face?" The rifle slips from my shoulder and lands in the snow between us. "Then why come back at all?" "Because I'm a coward." He steps closer, and I can see the marks of exhaustion beneath his eyes, the way his shoulders carry weight that has nothing to do with muscle. "Because I told myself I could stay away, but the moon keeps pulling me back to you, even when I know what it will cost." "Cost?" The word tastes like copper in my mouth. What could possibly cost more than leaving? The throne. His hands clench at his sides. My father's death means I'm no longer the spare heir who can disappear into the mountains with a human woman. I'm the king of the largest werewolf territory on this continent, and my people are already gathering for the coronation. The world tilts sideways because I knew he was royal, knew it in the way he moved, the way he commanded space. But king is something else entirely. So you came back to tell me you're marrying someone else. I came back to tell you I'm dying. His smile is sharp enough to cut. Every day I stay away from you feels like drowning in slow motion. But every day I stay near you puts a target on your back the size of my kingdom. That's my choice to make. No, the single word cracks like a whip. It's not. Because the moment I claimed you, the moment I tasted your blood and felt your soul wrap around mine, you became a weakness my enemies would exploit. You're not just a human anymore, Alara. You're the human who could bring down a kingdom. I step over the rifle and close the distance between us, my hands reaching for his face before he can retreat. His skin burns beneath my palms like he's running a fever that could burn down the world. Then, let them try. You don't understand. His hands capture my wrists, but he doesn't pull away. My cousin Victor has been challenging my claim since my father's death. He's already gathered supporters who believe a king who mates outside the bloodlines is unfit to rule. If they find you, they'll use you to force my abdication. So we fight them. His laugh is bitter. You write books about wolves, Alara, you don't fight them. I've been fighting my entire life. My voice rises with each word. I fought to get my degrees while working 3 jobs, fought to be taken seriously as a woman in field research, fought to build a life in these mountains that nobody thought I could survive. Don't tell me I don't know how to fight. His mouth crashes against mine mid-sentence, and the kiss tastes like desperation and winter and the sharp edge of goodbye. When he pulls back, we're both breathing like we've run miles through deep snow. That's why I can't stay away. His forehead rests against mine. Because you look at the crown and see a cage, but you don't flinch from the bars. You look at me and see the man, not the monster. You're not a monster. I am. His hands slide down to grip my hips, pulling me flush against him. I'm the thing that howls at the moon and hunts in the dark. I'm the nightmare your ancestors told stories about to keep their children close to the fire. You're the man who carried me 10 miles through a blizzard when I broke my ankle last winter. My hands thread through his hair, holding him close when he tries to pull away. You're the wolf who let me study his pack for months without harming a single human. You're the person who reads my manuscripts and tells me when I'm being too clinical about emotions. That man doesn't exist anymore. Then who am I talking to? The question hangs between us like a blade because we both know the answer. He's still Riker, still the man who learned to make coffee exactly how I like it, who brings me books he thinks I'll love, who held me through the night when my father died even though his own pack was calling for his attention. The king who has to choose between his heart and his people. You don't have to choose. My voice breaks on the words. We can find a way. There is no way. His hands tighten on my hips, and I can feel the tremor running through him. Victor arrives tomorrow with his supporters. I have to return for the coronation, have to take a mate from among the bloodlines, have to secure the succession. If I don't, he'll challenge me for the right to rule, and that challenge will be fought to the death. Then let me fight with you. You die. The words are flat and final. Victor would tear you apart before you could shift, and even if you survived that, the council would never accept a human queen. They'd assassinate you within a month, probably within a week. So we run. The suggestion feels like treason on my tongue, but I'd commit any crime to keep him. We disappear like you did 3 weeks ago, but this time we don't come back. And leave my people to Victor's rule? His laugh is hollow. He's worse than my father ever was, and my father thought nothing of executing entire families for perceived slights. If I run, I condemn thousands to death or slavery under a tyrant who believes humans should be kept as livestock rather than equals. The snow starts falling harder, thick flakes that stick to his eyelashes and melt against the heat of his skin. I can feel the moment slipping away from us, feel the weight of crown and kingdom settling back onto his shoulders like chains he can't break. So this is goodbye. My voice is steady because I won't let him see me break. This is goodbye. His hands slide up to frame my face, thumbs brushing away tears I didn't realize I was crying. But I needed you to know that every mile I walked away from you felt like tearing out my own heart. I needed you to know that you were the only thing that made me feel human in a life that's always belonged to the wolf. Riker, promise me something. His eyes bore into mine, gray as winter storms. Promise me you'll stay in these mountains where you're safe, that you'll keep writing your books and studying your wolves, that you'll build the life you deserve even if it can't include me. I want to promise because I can see how much he needs the lie, but I've never been good at telling falsehoods. I can't promise that. You have to. I can't because you're not the only one who gets to choose what to fight for. My hands cover his where they rest against my face. I won't chase you, and I won't beg, but I won't promise to forget you either. You don't get to ask that of me. His mouth finds mine again, softer this time, like he's memorizing the shape of goodbye. When he pulls back, the wind howls across the ridge like a warning neither of us wants to hear, and the first fat snowflakes slap my cheeks hard enough to sting. I taste copper on my tongue where his tooth scraped my lip, and the heat of him still burns through my coat even though he's already stepping away. Storm's here, Riker says, voice low and rough as the sky splits open above us, and the snow comes down so thick I can't see the trapline we've been following for the last hour. I shoulder my rifle, the strap biting through layers of wool and down, because I know we won't make it back to the truck before whiteout, and the only shelter on this ridge is the line shack 300 yards upslope. Riker doesn't wait for me to argue. He just turns into the wind, shoulders squared against the gale, and I follow because the alternative is freezing alone in the dark with a predator still circling somewhere beyond the veil of snow. The shack door bangs against the wall as we stumble inside, and the wind slams it shut behind us with a sound like a gunshot. The single room smells of pine pitch and old smoke, and the tiny window is already filmed with frost. I strip off my gloves with my teeth, fingers stiff and bloodless, while Riker drops the bar across the door, the scrape of iron on wood loud in the sudden hush. There's no lamp, only the iron stove crouched in the corner, and the stack of split cedar left by the last trapper who used this place. My breath fogs the air, and I can't stop shaking, but I force myself to move, to open the stove door, to dig the tin of matches from my pocket, because if I stop now, I'll never start again. Riker kneels beside me, his hands steady as he arranges kindling, and I catch the scent of him, snow and pine and something darker, wilder, something that makes my pulse jump against my ribs like a trapped thing. The first match flares, and the cedar catches with a crackle that sounds like distant rifle fire, and the glow paints Riker's face in gold and shadow. I sit back on my heels, watching the flames lick upward, and the warmth begins to seep into my bones, slow and sweet as honey. Outside, the storm rages like the world ending, but inside the shack the only sound is our breathing, ragged and syncopated, and the low pop of resin in the wood. Riker doesn't look at me when he speaks. You should strip. My laugh comes out brittle, but he's already peeling off his coat, revealing the thermal shirt clinging to the hard lines of his chest, and I understand. Wet layers will kill us faster than modesty. I toe off my boots, fingers clumsy on frozen laces, and the snow melt soaking my jeans has turned to ice that crackles as I bend. Riker's hands cover mine, steady and warm, and he eases the denim down my legs with a patience that makes my throat tight. We spread our clothes on the rough-hewn bench closest to the stove, and the fabric steams in the rising heat, the scent of wet wool mixing with cedar smoke and the faint musk of wolf that clings to Riker like second skin. I stand in my thermal top and socks, arms wrapped around myself, and the cold still gnaws at my edges, but the fire begins to beat it back, pulse by steady pulse. Riker adds another log, the muscles in his back shifting beneath the shirt, and when he straightens, the firelight catches the gold flecks in his eyes, turning them almost amber. Come here, he says, voice pitched low enough to vibrate through my sternum, and I step forward because resistance is a luxury I can't afford when the temperature keeps dropping. He settles onto the narrow cot wedged against the wall, tugging me down between his thighs, my back to his chest, and his arms close around me like living. The heat of him rolls through me in waves, and I feel the tremor in his muscles, the fine tension that says he's holding something back with everything he has. Time thins out, measured only by the hiss of snow against the tin roof and the slow, steady thud of his heart against my shoulder blade. I let my head fall back against his collarbone, and his breath stirs my hair, warm against my cold scalp. "You're still bleeding," he murmurs, fingers brushing the cut on my lip, and the touch is so gentle it hurts worse than the wound. I turn enough to meet his eyes, and the firelight turns them into molten gold, pupils blown wide, and I see the wolf looking back at me, wild and hungry and utterly unashamed. My pulse stutters, and I know I should be afraid, but the heat pooling low in my belly has nothing to do with the stove. "So are you," I whisper, touching the faint smear of blood at the corner of his mouth where my tooth caught him earlier, and the taste of him lingers on my tongue like a promise I'm not ready to break. His arms tighten, and I feel the hard length of him pressed against my spine, the evidence of how thin his control has worn, and the knowledge sends a spike of heat through me sharp enough to make me gasp. Outside, the wind screams like something hunting, but inside the shack the air thickens, scented with cedar and want, and the space between us collapses until there's only the thin layers of our thermals and the frantic drum of our hearts. Riker buries his face against my neck, inhaling like he's memorizing my scent, and the growl that rumbles through his chest vibrates against my back, low and possessive. "Tell me to stop," he says, the words muffled against my skin, but his hands are already sliding beneath my shirt, palms branding the chilled skin of my stomach, and I arch into the touch because stopping feels like dying, and I've never been good at surrender. I twist in his arms until I'm straddling his thighs, knees braced on the narrow cot, and the fire paints shifting shadows across his face as I frame it with my hands. "No," I say, voice steady even though my pulse is thundering in my ears, and I lean in until our foreheads touch, until our breath mingles in the small space between us. "I won't stop you, and I won't stop myself either, because we've been circling this since the moment you stepped out of the trees with snow in your hair and blood on your hands." His hands slide up my spine, pressing me closer, and the sound he makes is half groan, half surrender, and then his mouth finds mine again, softer this time, like he's tasting the shape of yes. The kiss deepens slowly, reverently, and I feel the moment his control snaps, the instant the wolf wins because the gentleness turns fierce, and his teeth scrape my lower lip just hard enough to draw blood, just enough to mark. I answer with my own hunger, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, and the cot creaks beneath us as we shift, as layers peel away like bark from a cedar, slow and sweet and necessary. The thermal shirt goes first, tossed toward the stove where it lands in a heap, and my hands map the hard planes of his chest, the scars that tell stories he's never spoken aloud, the faint silver lines that look like claw marks. He shudders beneath my touch, and when I lean down to trace one scar with my tongue, he growls my name like a prayer, like a curse, and the sound of it sends heat spiraling through me until I'm shaking for reasons that have nothing to do with cold. His hands cut my breasts through the thin cotton of my top, thumbs teasing until the fabric is damp and useless, and I arch into the touch because this is survival. This is the only way to outrun the storm that lives under our skin. We strip the rest of our clothes with urgent efficiency, and the firelight turns his skin to bronze, highlights the flecks of muscle as he lays me back against the rough wool blanket, the cot's frame groaning beneath our combined weight. The cold air bites at my exposed skin, but Riker covers me like a living furnace, his mouth following the path of his hands, tasting the hollow beneath my ear, the curve where shoulder meets throat, the sensitive skin above my collarbone. I bite back a whimper when his teeth close gently over the pulse point at my throat, and the claiming gesture sends a jolt of liquid heat straight to my core, because I understand what he's doing, what he's been fighting since the first moment he caught my scent on the wind. My legs wrap around his hips, and he rocks against me, the hard length of him sliding along my folds, teasing, promising, and the friction draws a moan from my throat that sounds like surrender, like victory, like the moment before the trap springs shut. "Elara," he breathes against my neck, and the vibration of my name on his lips unspools something feral inside me that answers only to the storm and to him. I arch into the pressure of his hips, and the ridge of his erection nudges my entrance, the thin barrier of our clothes the only thing keeping him from sliding home. Snow lashes the canvas wall behind us, and the wind howls like a pack at full throat, but the sound is only a distant echo beneath the blood rushing in my ears. His fingers find the zipper of my parka, and the metal teeth part with a hiss that feels like a countdown, like the last restraint snapping free. Cold air bites my collarbones, but Riker's mouth follows instantly, tongue tracing the hollow above my sternum, tasting the salt and fear and want that have been pooling there since the first time I saw him shift. I tug at his shirt, and the fabric rips because neither of us has patience for buttons, for anything that keeps skin from skin. His chest is furnace hot against my breasts, and the contact draws a groan from him that vibrates through my ribs, through the marrow of my bones. "You smell like pine needles and thunder," he growls, and the words are half human, half something rougher, and I feel the prick of canines scraping my shoulder where he bites down just hard enough to mark without breaking. The claiming scent floods the small space, musk and snow and iron, and my body answers with a slick rush of heat that soaks through the layers still between us. I hook my fingers into the waistband of his jeans, and he shifts to let me yank them down, and then his cock springs free, heavy and velvet steel against my belly. Riker braces one hand beside my head, and the tendons in his forearm cord as he holds himself above me, trembling with the effort of not plunging deep in a single stroke. His eyes glow amber in the dim shelter, pupils blown wide, and I see the wolf looking back at me, patient and wild and utterly certain. "Say it," he demands, voice ragged, and I know what he needs because I need it too, the words that will snap the last tether of control. "I'm yours," I whisper, and the admission feels like leaping from a cliff, like stepping into a trap I never want escaped. The sound he makes is half howl, half my name, and then he surges forward, and I feel the broad head of him breach me, stretching, burning, perfect. I dig my nails into his back, and the sting makes him snarl, and the snarl makes me clench around him, and the feedback loop of sensation spirals tighter with every inch he feeds me. Outside, the storm slams against the mountain like a living thing, but inside our cocoon of coats and breath and skin, there is only the wet slide of bodies moving in a rhythm older than language. He bottoms out, and for a heartbeat we stay locked, pulsing, learning the shape of each other, and I feel the moment his control frays because his hips jerk involuntarily, grinding the base of his cock against my clit until sparks burst behind my eyelids. "Move," I urge, and the single word is a plea, a command, a surrender all at once. He draws back slowly, dragging every ridge and vein over sensitive nerves, and then snaps forward, and the impact drives a cry from my throat that the wind swallows whole. Again and again, each thrust deeper, harder, until the snow-packed ground beneath the canvas bruises my spine, and I welcome the ache because it proves this is real, proves I am not dreaming alone. His breath huffs hot against my ear, and I turn to catch his mouth, and the kiss tastes of snow and copper and the electric charge that precedes lightning. I wrap my legs higher around his waist, and the change in angle lets him hit that place inside me that makes my vision white out, and I break the kiss to gasp his name like a prayer. Riker's hand slides between us, and his thumb finds my clit, circling in tight, merciless strokes that match the pounding of his hips, and the dual pressure coils low in my belly, tighter, hotter, until the spring snaps and I come with a silent scream, inner muscles clamping down so hard he snarls, fangs scraping my jugular. The first pulse of my climax milks him, and I feel him swell impossibly larger, and then he buries himself to the hilt and stills, cock jerking as he spills deep inside me, claiming me in the most primal way the wild allows. The heat of his release floods me, and the contrast with the freezing air makes me shiver, and he gathers me closer, rolling so that I sprawl across his chest while aftershocks ripple through us both. Our heartbeats hammer against each other, and gradually the roar of the storm filters back in, reminding us the world is still out there, still waiting to test us. I press my ear to his sternum and listen to the slowing thud, counting the seconds between thunderclaps, and I realize the trapline mystery has not been solved, that the storm will pass and the questions will still be waiting. But right now, with his scent soaked into my skin and his seed marking me inside, the unknown feels like something we can face together. Riker's fingers card through my tangled hair, and the tenderness after the violence makes my throat tight, because I understand this is the wolf's way of apologizing for the bruises, for the roughness, for needing me too much to be gentle. "I won't let it take me completely," he says into the dark, voice rough as river stones. "Not while I have you to come back to." I lift my head to meet his eyes, and the amber has softened to something closer to candlelight, warm and steady. "Then I'll keep calling you home," I answer, and the promise settles between us like a pact older than the mountain itself. Outside, the wind shifts, howling now from the north, carrying the scent of more snow, of wolves on the move, of dangers neither of us has named yet. I pull the edge of his parka over us like a blanket, and we lie skin to skin while the storm writes its own story on the walls of our shelter. And I know dawn will bring new tracks, new choices, new reasons to run or stay. Riker's breathing evens into the slow rhythm of sleep, but I stay awake, listening to the snow hiss against canvas, feeling the pulse of him still inside me, and I catalog every sensation because this is data, this is evidence. This is the moment the wolf and the woman agreed to share the same skin. When the first gray light creeps under the flap, I will follow the trail that vanished in the storm, and I will find what left no blood, no prints, no scent but terror. And when whatever it is tries to take him from me, it will learn that an ethologist who has studied predators for a decade knows exactly where to place the trap that cannot be escaped, because I have already stepped into it willingly, and I have no intention of ever being set free. The first howl slices the dawn before the tent walls stop vibrating from our heartbeats, and I know the hunters have crossed the river. Riker's eyes snap open, pupils blown wide, gold bleeding into amber, and his growl rumbles through my ribs where our skin still touches. I taste iron on my tongue, the memory of his kiss, and I know the storm was only rehearsal for this moment when the kingdom's dogs come for the wolf they crown prince. I roll from the sleeping bag, fingers closing around the tranq pistol I never unpacked, because instinct told me the trapline was never about wolves, but about the man who becomes one. Riker's hand clamps my wrist, claws pricking skin, and his voice is gravel scraping bone. They tracked my crown, not my paw prints, and they will burn this forest to cage me. I meet his gaze, let him see the trapper's resolve in my set jaw, because I already chose the bite over the bullet. Then we make them regret bringing fire to a place where every tree remembers their scent. Snow crust cracks under boot leather as we break camp, and each step writes our defiance across the white page the hunters think is theirs. Riker moves ahead, shoulders rolling under the wolf that waits beneath his skin, and I follow with the rifle slung low, barrel downwind, so the metal does not give us away. The ridge offers one route to the valley, and the hunters' horses must climb the same switchback where I once filmed a lone female wolf teach her pups to leap stone to stone. I know where the ice thins, where the spruce roots buckle, where a man on horseback will feel the mountain shrug. Riker pauses at the crest, nostrils flaring, and his whisper is barely breath. 6 riders, 2 dogs, 1 witch with silver net. My stomach knots, because a silver net means they know what he is, and they want him breathing for the king's arena. I thumb the safety off the tranq pistol, count darts, 6 + 1 in the chamber, and I understand the math of sacrifice. We split them on the ice shelf, I murmur back, tasting the plan like blood. You draw the dogs, I drop the witch. His grin is all teeth, and for a heartbeat the wolf looks out, proud and hungry. We reach the shelf as the sun bleeds through cloud rips, painting the slope rose and bruise. Below, the hunters fan out, scarlet sashes marking them servants of the crown, and I see the witch riding side saddle, hair white as hoarfrost, net coiled at her hip like a sleeping serpent. Riker strips behind a boulder, skin steaming in the cold, and I watch the change ripple through him, fur sliding over muscle, jaw elongating, human agony swallowed by lupin grace. The wolf shakes, snow flying from silver-tipped hackles, then turns amber eyes on me, waiting. I kneel, press my forehead to his, and inhale the musk of pine and mate. Come back to me, I whisper, because the trap I set is also a promise. He licks the blood bead where his claw pricked my wrist, sealing oath with taste, then bounds onto the ice shelf, paws silent as moonrise. I chamber the first dart, settle behind a wind-carved drift, and steady my breath until the world narrows to the witch's heartbeat. The dogs catch Riker's scent first, baying like damnation, and the hunters spur forward, hooves drumming. Riker appears at the far end of the shelf, a silhouette against sky, taunting with his stillness. The witch raises a hand, halting them, suspicion tightening her shoulders, but the dogs lunge, dragging their handlers onto the brittle blue glass. I exhale, squeeze, and the dart kisses the neck of the left dog. It yelps, stumbles, confusion clouding its eyes. Chaos ripples through the line as Riker leaps, a gray thunderbolt, and the shelf answers with a gunshot crack. Ice tilts, horses scrabble, and 2 riders spill into the black water. I shift aim, send the second dart into the breast of the lead hunter, watch him claw at the air before sliding beneath the flow. The witch swings her net, lips moving in a binding spell, but Riker is already beneath her horse, jaws snapping at its belly, driving it toward the weak center seam. I fire again, miss, correct, and the third dart buries in her thigh. Her curse becomes a shriek as the horse crashes through, taking her into the river's winter mouth. Silence crashes down, broken only by the drip of thaw and the ragged breath of survivors crawling to shore. Riker trots to me, fur dark with spray, eyes glowing with triumph and something softer. I sling the rifle, kneel, bury my fingers in his ruff, and let the tremor I've been swallowing shake us both. One witch down, I breathe, but the king will send the sky next. He nuzzles my throat, a gentle pressure that says we run or we stand, but we do not surrender. I rise, glance at the ridge where smoke now coils above the pines, and I know the pack has seen the signal fire, that my name is being weighed against loyalty. We go to them, I decide, because running only cements guilt, and I have never let others speak my fate. Riker whines, a low warning, but he follows as I turn toward the village, because the wolf has learned that my stubbornness is another kind of trap. The pack hall smells of pine resin and fear when I push through the door, Riker a warm shadow at my back. Faces turn, some streaked with ash from the warning pyre, some already hardened into judgment. My alpha Marta stands beside the council table, gray braid like a rope of moonlight, eyes storming. You brought the crown's wrath into our den, Alara. Her voice cuts the hush, and every syllable lands like a stone on ice. Vote is cast. I lift my chin, let the room see the claw marks on my wrist, the scent of wolf on my skin. Then count again, I say, stepping forward so they must see Riker's amber gaze over my shoulder. Because the kingdom calls him monster, but the mountain knows he is the last prince of the blood that once protected these forests. Murmurs ripple, uncertainty flowering where fear rooted. Marta's nostrils flare, catching the lie and truth braided in my scent. You ask us to exile ourselves with you. I shake my head, feel Riker's heat seep into my bones. I ask you to choose the story the pups will howl when the king's men burn these woods. Do we cower, or do we stand beside the wolf who would shield us? Voices rise, some snarling, some pleading, and I smell the fracture before I see it. Old Jonas slams his staff against the floorboards, silence splintering around him. My granddaughter's mate was taken by the crown's dogs last winter. I say we return the favor. A younger hunter spits into the fire. And risk our pups becoming orphans? The debate rages, but I feel the shift. The moment sent tips from dread to defiance, and I know the vote will change. Marta watches me, eyes narrowing, and I see the alpha calculate the cost of my rebellion. If we shelter you, the hunters will come again, she says, voice low. Then we teach them what it means to hunt wolves, I answer, and Riker's growl underlines every word. Marta closes her eyes, inhales, and when she opens them, they gleam with decision. New vote, she calls, and the room answers with raised fists, more each heartbeat, until the hall thunders with pack unity. Outside, dusk bleeds across the sky, and I stand on the porch watching torches flare to life along the paths. Riker leans against my leg, human once more, wrapped in a borrowed coat. They will follow you into fire, he says, wonder threading his voice. I lace our fingers, feel the callus on his palm, the promise in his grip. Then let's build a fire the king cannot ignore. I turn toward the ridge where the first stars pierce the dark, and I know the next trap will not be mine alone, but every paw and foot that calls this forest home. Behind us, the pack redaxes, children carried to safe dens, hunters stringing bows, grandmothers sharpening silver knives dipped in wolfsbane that will not burn Riker, but will greet the crown's soldiers with poisoned welcome. I breathe the night, taste pine and snow and mate, and I understand that exile was never my ending but the kingdom's warning that some traps close with teeth around the hand that sets them. Riker kisses my temple, a soft claiming. When this is done, will you still want the wolf? I pull him closer, answer. With my mouth on his throat, and the salt of his skin floods my tongue as I speak the words that bind us. I want the wolf because he is you. My pulse slams against his collarbone, and the rumble that answers is not human, but it is Riker, every growling octave of him vibrating through my sternum. He drags my hips flush to his, and the ridge of his arousal brands me even through layers of wool and leather, and I feel the first crack in his restraint like ice giving way beneath my boots. Snow hisses across the tent wall, and somewhere beyond the canvas the river ice groans, but inside our small shelter the air is thick with musk and heartbeat, and I know the hunters will hear us if we let this go further, and I also know I no longer care. Riker's breath is furnace hot against my ear, and his voice is gravel wrapped in velvet. Then take the wolf, Alara, because the man is begging. I sink my teeth into the curve where shoulder becomes throat, and the taste of him is lightning-struck cedar, and the sound he makes is surrender wrapped around triumph. His blood warms my tongue for one bright second before the skin knits beneath my mouth, and the shock of that healing slams into me like a fist because I understand what I have just done. I have claimed him, and the claiming is not symbolic, and the bond snaps taut between us like a silver wire humming with current. Riker's head falls back, and his eyes flare amber so bright they cast shadows on the tent wall, and the growl that tears out of his chest is the sound of every secret door swinging open at once. He buries his hands in my hair, and his mouth crushes mine, and the kiss tastes of iron and pine and the storm that lives under his ribs, and I feel the moment his control shatters, because the sound that escapes him is half howl and half my name. The tent wall rips open like paper, and the wind that pours in is full of arrows and shouted commands, and I see the glint of silver points dipped in the purple sheen of wolfsbane. Riker moves so fast he is a blur, and the first hunter's bow snaps across his knee, and the second man's scream is cut short by the impact of Riker's shoulder against his ribs. I roll, snatching the rifle from the ground, and the stock is slick with melted snow, but my hands know the weight like a lover's face, and I fire once into the dark beyond the torn canvas. The shot echoes like a thunderclap, and someone curses in a language that tastes like old iron, and then the night pours wolves through the gaping wall. They are not our pack, but they answer the summons of Riker's rage, and their eyes burn green and gold in the moonlight, and their teeth flash like knives honed on winter stone. I feel Riker's thoughts brush mine, a hot whisper of instinct and image. The river, the ridge, the line of hunters moving like ants along the snow. I understand that the bond is open, and the knowledge is a drug I want to mainline straight into my veins, but there is no time because a blade whistles past my ear and buries itself in the tent pole. I spin, driving the rifle butt into the soft hollow beneath a hunter's jaw, and the bone gives with a wet crunch, and the man drops, but his partner lunges, and silver flashes toward my heart. Riker's hand closes around the blade, and the metal slices his palm, but the wound closes before the blood can more than kiss the snow, and he snarls something in a tongue older than language, and the hunter's face drains of color, and he backpedals into the dark. The wolves close ranks, and their bodies form a living wall around us, and their combined breath rises like steam, and I feel their loyalty beat against my skin like second heartbeats. Riker turns, and his eyes are twin suns, and the blood on his hand is already drying to copper flakes, and he cups my face with the same hand, and the heat of him brands my cheeks. They came for the wolf, but they found the crown instead. His voice is rough velvet, and the words settle over me like a coronation cloak, and I understand that exile is over, and the kingdom that cast me out is about to learn what happens when it hunts the thing I love. I press my mouth to his, and the kiss is brief but fierce, and the taste of him steadies the tremor in my knees, and then I step back, raising the rifle, and I sight along the barrel at the shadows that hesitate beyond the firelight. Riker's laugh is low and wild, and he strips off his coat, and the muscles of his back ripple beneath the thin shirt, and I watch the change ripple through him like wind across wheat, but he holds the shift at the knife edge between man and wolf, because tonight he needs both. He lifts his head, and the howl that rips from his throat is answered by a dozen voices, and the sound rolls across the snow like war drums. I feel the bond surge, and my own voice rises, wordless and raw, and the harmony of our twin cries stitches the night together with silver thread. The hunters falter, and some break ranks, but the ones who remain raise bows, and arrows hiss toward us like angry hornets, and the wolves leap, and the battle becomes a storm of fur and fang and screaming steel. I move through the chaos like a dancer who has memorized every step, and the rifle becomes an extension of my spine, and each shot finds its mark. But the recoil is gentler than it should be because Riker's strength flows through the bond and steadies my hands. I feel his joy like wildfire, and it burns away the last of my fear, and when a hunter lunges at me with a knife forged of silver, I duck, and Riker's claw rakes across the man's throat, and the spray of blood paints the snow crimson, and the color is so bright against the white that it seems to sing, and I spin away from the falling body, and Riker's wolf form lands beside me, and his fur is bristling with the same electric hunger that crackles through my veins, and the bond between us pulses like a second heart, and I can taste his wildness on my tongue, and it is better than any word I have ever written, and the remaining hunters hesitate, and that pause is their death sentence, and Riker's growl rolls out like thunder. And I lift the rifle again, and the stock fits against my shoulder as if it was carved for me, and I fire, and the silver bullet finds the chest of the man who once skinned wolves for bounty, and he drops, and his blood steams in the cold. And I feel no pity because the wolf inside me remembers every trap, every pelt, every scream. And now the reckoning has come, and Riker moves, and I move with him, and we are no longer two beings but one hunting unit. And the snow flies beneath our feet, and the wind carries the scent of gunpowder and terror, and I swing the rifle like a club, and the barrel cracks against a hunter's temple. And he crumples, and Riker leaps over me, and his jaws close on another throat, and the sound is wet and final. And I whirl toward the last man standing. And he is young, maybe 19, and his eyes are wide with the knowledge that he chose the wrong prey. And I smell his fear, and it is sour, and I step closer. And the rifle hangs loose in my hands because I will not need it, and Riker circles behind the boy, and his shadow is huge on the snow. And I feel the moment stretch like taffy, and I speak, and my voice is calm. And I tell the boy to drop his weapon, and he does, and the pistol sinks into the drift, and he starts to shake, and I should feel mercy. But the wolf in me remembers the traps, and I take another step, and Riker's growl vibrates through the ground, and I feel the bond urging completion. And I know what must happen, and I reach up to the collar of my coat, and I pull it aside, and I bare my shoulder, and I look at Riker, and his eyes burn amber, and I nod, and he lunges, and his fangs sink into my flesh, and the pain is white-hot, and it races through me like molten silver, and I scream, but the sound becomes a howl, and the howl becomes music. And the bite is not just flesh but promise. And I feel the bond seal with a snap that echoes in my bones, and the world tilts. And I drop to my knees, and the snow soaks through my jeans, but I do not care because the fire is spreading, and it is rewriting every cell. And I feel Riker's soul pour into me, and it is storm and forest and moonlight, and I take it all, and I give back everything I am, and the exchange is unbearably sweet. And when he releases me, the wound is already closing, and the scar will be a crescent moon, and I stand, and the boy is staring. And I know he sees the change in my eyes because he falls to his knees, and I walk past him, and I pick up the pistol, and I empty the chamber into the snow, and I toss the useless weapon aside, and I tell the boy to run, and to tell every hunter that the wolves are no longer prey, and that the pack remembers, and he runs, and his footprints are deep and desperate, and Riker shifts, and his human form rises behind me, and his arms circle my waist, and his skin is hot against my back. And I feel his heart racing in time with mine, and we stand in the silence that follows slaughter. And the snow begins to fall again, and it covers the blood, but it cannot erase what we are, and I turn in his arms, and I look up at Riker, and his eyes are still glowing, and I reach up, and I trace the line of his jaw, and I feel the stubble that proves he is real, and I whisper that I am his, and he answers that he has always been mine, and the words are simple. But they carry the weight of every full moon we will run together, and I rise onto my toes, and I kiss him, and the taste of him is wild and metallic and perfect, and the wind howls around us, and it sounds like celebration, and somewhere in the distance, the pack answers, and their voices rise in a chorus that shakes the pines. And I know that we are no longer alone, and we will never be alone again, and Riker lifts me, and my legs wrap around his waist, and the heat between us is instant and urgent and necessary, and I feel his desire through the bond, and it mirrors my own, and we are still alive, and we are together, and the hunters are broken, and the alliance is forged in blood and bite. And when he carries me toward the tent, I do not look back at the bodies because they are only footprints now, and the future is calling, and it sounds like howls and heartbeats, and I bury my fingers in his hair, and I pull his mouth to mine again, and the snow keeps falling, and the world keeps spinning. And we keep moving, and the bond keeps singing. And I know that tomorrow we will track the survivors, and we will teach them fear. But tonight we will love, and the moon will witness, and the pack will remember, and I will write this story in the language of teeth and touch. And Riker will read every word with his hands and his mouth, and the tale will never end because we are eternal, and the wolves are no longer hunted, and I am no longer merely Alara the observer. And he is no longer merely Riker the lone wolf, and together we are the axis the wild world spins around, and the hunters who cross the river at dusk will find nothing but our footprints merging into one track, and that track will lead them into the dark where Riker's wolf voice rolls like thunder, and my human heart answers with the drum of blood through my veins, and the bite on his shoulder that I set with human teeth, and sealed with wolf fire burns every time he moves beneath me, and I taste iron and snow and the musk of our joining. And the storm has passed, but the wind still carries the scent of gun, oil, and fear, and Riker's claws score my back as he lifts me against the trunk of the pine. and the bark bites my skin, but the pain is only another note in the song threading us together. And his growl vibrates through my sternum when he says my name, Alara, like a vow. And I answer with his, Riker, like a claim, and the moonlight pools silver in the hollow of his throat where my teeth left the crescent that marks him as mine. And the pack shadows circle just beyond the firelight, but they do not approach because they know the bond is sealed, and the throne of these mountains has 2 hearts beating inside it. And when the first rifle cracks across the ravine, Riker's head snaps toward the sound, and his eyes glow amber with the hunt. And I feel the shift ripple through him like electricity, and I slide down his body until my boots touch snow, and my hand finds the rifle I dropped when we loved. And the steel is cold, but his palm covers mine, and the warmth flows through the metal into my bones. And together, we step into the open, where the moon paints us in stark light and darker shadow. And the hunters will see not a woman and a wolf, but a single creature they have no word for. And they will understand that the stories they told around their fires were only the dim reflections of the truth that now walks toward them. And I breathe the night deep into my lungs and taste Riker on every molecule. And the bond pulses like a second heart between us, and we move as one body, one will, one hunger that has waited centuries for this moment. And tomorrow the ravens will feast on what remains of those who thought they could bring chains into these woods, and the wolves will sing of it, and I will write it, and Riker will live it. And the cycle will turn again because we are the story that never ends, and the bite on his shoulder glows under the moon like a star pinned to his skin. And I know that when dawn comes we will still be standing here, and the snow will be stained with the memory of those who forgot that the wild always wins. And I lean into Riker's warmth and feel the last of my human fear burn away in the furnace of our shared pulse. And the night stretches ahead of us, endless and alive, and we step forward to meet it because we are no longer separate things. And the hunters have no idea that they are the ones being hunted tonight. His wolf's eyes meet mine, and the bond snaps into place with a force that steals my breath. Mine, he growls against my skin, and I feel the truth of it in every cell. I am his, and he is mine, bound by something older than words. Would you surrender to the wild within?